Section 90 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 23. The eighth heaven, the fixed stars, the twins, triumphant spirits, the Son of God, the Mother of Christ.
Even as a bird, among the leaves she loves, settles upon the nest of her sweet brood throughout the night, which hides things from our eyes, and then, that she may see their longed-for looks, and find the food wherewith to nourish them, in doing which she deems hard work a pleasure, comes forth betimes upon an outer branch, and gazing steadfastly with burning love, waits for the sun till break of dawn. So stood my lady, toward that region turned intent, neath which the sun appears to show least haste. Hence I, on seeing her absorbed in thought, became like one who, yearning with desire for other things, contents himself with hope. But little time elapsed between each when, I mean from when I waited, till the sky I saw grow more and more suffused with light. Then Beatrice exclaimed,
Behold the hosts of Christ's victorious triumph, and all the fruit ingathered by the circling of these spheres.
To me her countenance seemed all on fire, and so replete with happiness her eyes, that I must pass without describing them. As when in cloudless skies the moon is full, Trivia among those nymphs eternal smiles, who deck with light the whole expanse of heaven. So I, above 1,000,000 lamps, beheld a sun which kindled one and all, as our sun kindles all the stars on high. And through the living light the shining substance was so transparent, and so brightly shone upon my face, that I endured it not. O Beatrice, thou dear and gentle guide!
That which o'erwhelms thee is a power,
she said,
against which nothing can defend itself. This is the wisdom, this the virtue is, which opened wide the road 'tween heaven and earth, which was in olden times so long desired.
As fire is liberated from a cloud, when so dilating that it finds no room, and falls, against its nature, to the earth, even so my mind, as it became enlarged among those viands, issued from itself. But what it then became, cannot recall.
Open thine eyes, and see what now I am. Such things thou hast perceived that now thou art equipped with power to look upon my smile.
I was like one who, when aroused from sleep, is of a dream aware which he forgets, and tries in vain to bring it back to mind, when I had heard a bidding which deserves such gratitude that never from the book which holds past records will it be effaced. If now to help me all those tongues should speak which Polyhymnia and her sisters fed most richly with the sweetest of their milk, the 1,000th portion of the truth would not be reached, even though they sang the holy smile, and how it lighted up the holy face. Hence, painting Paradise, the sacred poem must leap like one who finds his path cut off. But none, who to its weighty theme gave thought, and to the mortal shoulder bearing it, would blame it, should it tremble neath its load. No waters for a little boat are these. My daring plough goes cleaving on its way, nor for a pilot who would spare himself.
Why doth my countenance enamour thee so much, that to the garden beautiful thou turnest not, which blooms beneath Christ's rays? Here is the rose, in which the Word divine became incarnate. Here the lilies are, whose scent led men to take the righteous path.
Thus Beatrice. And I, who for her counsels was wholly ready, gave myself again to fight the battle of the feeble brows. As once my overshadowed eyes beheld a field of flowers in a ray of sunlight, which through a riven cloud was shining clear. Thus many a throng of splendours now I saw, illumined from on high by burning rays, but not the source of their effulgent light. O kindly virtue, who dost thus impress them, thou didst uplift thyself to give mine eyes, which were not strong yet, greater room to see. The name of that fair flower which I invoke each morn, and evening too, forced all my mind to turn its gaze upon the greatest fire. But when in both mine eyes the magnitude and splendour of that living star was painted, which vanquishes up there, as once down here, a torch, formed ringwise like a crown, descended from midmost heaven, and girdling her about, around her whirled. Whatever melody sounds sweetest here on earth, and to itself most strongly draws the soul, would seem a peal of thunder breaking from a cloud, if measured by the music of the lyre, with which that lovely sapphire crowned itself, whereby ensaphired glows the brightest heaven.
Angelic love am I, and
The circling melody thus closed itself as with a seal, and all the other lights made Mary's name resound. The royal robe, of all the convolutions of the world, which burneth most, and by the breath and ways of God is quickened with the greatest life, had its internal shore so far above us, that, where I was, its semblance was not yet revealed to me. Mine eyes hence could not follow the flame which, crowned, behind its offspring rose. And as a child who, having had its milk, stretches its little arms up toward its mother, urged by the love which outwardly flames forth, thus each of those white spirits with its flame stretched up in such a way that its deep love for Mary was made manifest to me. Thereafter they remained there in my presence, singing, O Queen of Heaven, so tenderly that its delight hath never left me since. Oh, how abundant is the store heaped up in those most wealthy coffers, which were once good husbandmen for sowing seed below. Here, living on it, they enjoy the treasure, which, weeping in their exile, they acquired in Babylon, where gold was left untouched. Here triumphs, subject to the exalted Son of God and Mary, in his victory, together with the councils old and new, he who of such great glory holds the keys.
End of Paradiso, Canto 23. Section 91 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 24. The eighth or starry heaven. The twins. St. Peter examines Dante on faith. O fellowship elected to the banquet of that blessed Lamb, who feedeth you so well that ever sated is your appetite, since, by the grace of God, this man enjoys a foretaste of what falleth from your table, or ever death have set his time for him. Heed his immense desire, and on him shed a little of your due. Ye from the source forever drink, whence cometh what he thinks.
Thus Beatrice. Thereat those happy spirits arranged themselves in spheres on steady poles, emitting brilliant flames, as comets do. And even as wheels within the works of clocks so turn, for one who heeds them, that the first seems quiet, while the last appears to fly, even so, since at a different speed they whirled, those carol dancers, whether swift or slow, permitted me to estimate their wealth. From that one which I deemed of greatest beauty, I saw a fire so happy issue forth, that none of it left of greater brightness there. Then around Beatrice it turned 3 times with so divine a song, that even my fancy repeats it not for me. And so my pen takes a leap forward, and I write it not. For our imagination much more speech, too bright a colour is to paint such folds.
O holy sister mine, who so devoutly dost pray to us, thou, by thine ardent love, withdrawest me from yonder lovely sphere.
When once at rest again, that blessed fire turned toward my lady with his voice, which spoke as I have said, and she replied to him,
O thou eternal life of that great man, to whom of this great joy our Lord bequeathed the keys which he brought down, test thou this man as pleases thee, on questions light and grave pertaining to the faith, which formerly enabled thee to walk upon the sea. If well he love, well hope, and well believe, is not concealed from thee, because thy sight is thither turned, where all is seen depicted. But since this realm hath through the true faith won its citizens, 'tis well that, to its glory, it should befall him now to speak of it.
even as a bachelor equips himself, nor speaks until the master states the question, to furnish proofs, but not decide the same, so I, while she was speaking, armed myself with every proof, that I might ready be for such a questioner, and such confession.
Speak now, good Christian, and declare thyself. What, then, is faith?
Thereat I raised my brow toward the bright light from which these words were breathed, and then I turned around toward Beatrice, and she by rapid signals bade me pour the water forth from my internal fount. The grace which grants that I confess myself before the first centurion, I began, cause my conceptions to be well expressed. And I continued, as the truthful pen of thy dear brother, Father, who with thee set Rome upon the right way, wrote of it, faith is the substance of the hoped-for things, and the evidence of those that are not seen. This seems to me its essence. Then I heard,
Thou thinkest right, if well thou understand why with the substances he placed it first, and with the evidences afterward.
Thereat I answered, Those deep truths which here are freely making themselves known to me, from eyes down yonder are so far concealed that their existence lies in faith alone, and thereupon the lofty hope is based. It therefore takes the nature of a substance, and from this faith one needs must syllogize without the help of any other sight. It therefore assumes the nature of an evidence. And then I heard,
If thus were understood all that for doctrine is acquired below, there'd be no room there for the sophist's mind.
These words were breathed from that enkindled love, which added then,
Already have this coin's alloy and weight been very well examined. But tell me, if thou hast it in thy purse.
I therefore, yes, so shining and so round, that nothing in its coinage makes me doubt. Then issued from the deep light shining there,
Whence did this precious jewel come to thee, whereon all virtues else are based?
and I, the abundant showers of the Holy Spirit outpoured upon the parchments old and new, a syllogism have formed, which prove it true so clearly to me that all other proofs seem inconclusive when compared with it.
The ancient premise and the new,
I then heard asked,
which so conclusive are to thee, why dost thou take them for the word of God?
and I, the proof which showeth me the truth, are those great works which followed, works for which nature ne'er heated iron, nor anvil smote. Then I was answered,
Say what makes thee sure that those works e'er occurred. The very thing which calls for proof, none other, tells thee so.
If to Christianity the world was turned, I said, unhelped by miracles, then this is such, that not 100th of the rest. For thou didst poor and fasting go afield, to sow the goodly plant, which was of old a vine, and now has turned into a thorn. This ending thus, the high and holy court resounded through the spheres a God we praise. Sung to the melody they sing up there. That Baron then, who thus from branch to branch had tested me, and now had led me on, until the final leaves were drawing near, began again,
The grace which with thy mind holds loving converse, hitherto hath oped thy mouth as it should be. Hence I approve of that which it hath uttered. But it now behooves thee say what thou believest in, and whence it has been offered to thy faith.
O Holy Father, Spirit that dost now behold what thou didst so believe, that thou didst outrun toward the tomb far younger feet, I thus began. Thou'dst have me now reveal the essential part of my sincere belief, and thou dost also ask the cause of it. And I reply, in one God I believe, sole and eternal, who, himself unmoved, moves all the heavens with love and with desire. And I, for so believing, have not only proofs physical and metaphysical, but that truth also yieldeth me its proof, which hence rains down through Moses, Psalms, and prophets, and through the Gospel, and through you, who wrote after the flaming Spirit made you shepherds. And I believe in 3 eternal persons, and these to be one essence, so both one and trine, that they can be conjoined by are and is. Of the divine profound estate whereto I now refer, the teaching of the Gospel sets many times the seal upon my mind. This is the fountainhead, and this the spark, which after spreads into a living flame, and in me glows, as stars do in the sky. As when a lord, hearing what pleases him, rejoices in the news his servant brings, and takes him to his arms when he is silent, so giving me his blessing as he sang, that apostolic light, at whose command I spoke, when I had ceased, thrice girdled me. So greatly had I pleased him by my words.
End of Paradiso, Canto 24. Section 92 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 25. The eighth or starry heaven. The twins. Triumphant spirits. St. James examines Dante on hope.
If e'er it happen that the sacred poem, to which both heaven and earth have so set hand that it hath made me lean for many years, or come the fierceness which against me bars the lovely fold, where as a lamb I slept, though hostile to the wolves that give it war, then with another voice and other fleece a poet I'll return, and at the font of mine own baptism take the laurel crown. For there I entered first into the faith, which makes souls known to God, and Peter later, because of my belief, thus wreathed my brow. Then toward us, after this, there moved a light out of the sphere, from which the first fruit issued, which of his vicars Christ once left behind. And full of joy my lady said to me,
Look, look, behold the Baron for whose sake men go to see Galicia down on earth.
As when a dove alighteth near its mate, each, by its circling and its cooing, shows the other its affection, thus I saw one great and glorious prince the other greet, and praise the food which sateth them up there. But when their mutual gratulations ceased, before me each in silence stopped, and flamed so brightly that my face was forced to bow. Then smiling Beatrice,
Illustrious life, by whom the generous liberality of our basilica was once described, let hope resound upon these heavenly heights. Thou knowest that thou didst stand for it, as oft as Jesus showed most brightness to the three.
Lift up thy head, and reassure thyself, for all that cometh from the mortal world up hither must be ripened in our rays.
this comfort reached me from the second fire. Hence to the hills I raised mine eyes, which erst had bowed them down by their excessive weight.
Since of his graciousness our Emperor wills that thou before thy death shouldest face his counts in his most secret hall, that having seen the truth in this our court, thou mayest confirm, both in thyself and other souls, the hope which rightfully enamours men on earth. Say what it is, and how therewith thy mind is blossoming, and whence it came to thee.
Thus further did the second light proceed, and that kind soul who to so high a flight had led the feathers of my wings forestalled my answer thus.
No child of greater hope hath the church militant, as in the sun is written, which irradiates all our band. It, therefore, hath been granted him to come from Egypt to Jerusalem, and see, or ere the period of his warfare end. Thine other two requests, made not for knowledge, but so that he may carry back with him to what extent this virtue pleases thee, I leave to him, for they will not be hard for him, nor matter for self-praise. To these let him reply, and may God's grace assist him.
Even as in that wherein he expert is, a pupil readily and willingly answers his teacher, that his worth be shown. Hope is, I said, a steadfast expectation of future glory, which by grace divine and by preceding merit is produced. This light from many stars comes down to me, but he into my heart instilled it first, who was the greatest leader's greatest bard. For let them hope in thee that know thy name, the latter in his Theody declares, and if he have my faith, who knows it not? Then thou with his instilling didst so greatly instil that hope in me with thine epistle, that filled with it I pour your rain on others. While I was speaking, in the living bosom of that great fire, a bright effulgence quivered quickly and often, like a lightning flash, and then it breathed.
The love wherewith I still warm to the virtue which once followed me, till with the palm I issued from the field, would have me give my breath to thee again, that dost therein delight, and I am pleased to have thee say what promise hope affords thee.
And I, the Scriptures, both the new and old, the goal establish of the souls whom God hath made his friends. This points it out to me. Isaiah says that each in his own land will in a double garment be arrayed, and his own land is this sweet life of ours. And in a more explicit way thy brother makes this same revelation manifest to us, whereof the snow-white robes he treats. After these words had ended, first was heard above us,
Let them hope in thee.
whereto all of the carols made reply, and then a light became so brilliant in their midst, that, if the crab had such a crystal star, winter would have a month of one sole day. And as a happy maiden rising goes in honour of the bride to join the dance, and not for any failing on her part, even so I saw the splendour, brighter grown, approach the two who in a wheel were turning, as it behooved the ardour of their love. Into the song and music then it entered, and on the three my lady kept her gaze, silent and motionless as would a bride.
This is the one who on his breast reclined, who is our pelican, and from the cross selected was to hold the filial office.
Even thus my lady spoke, but no more after did her words withdraw her eyes from fixed attention than before. Even as is he who gazes at the sun and tries to see it partially eclipsed, and who, because of seeing, groweth blind, such I became before that latest fire, till this was said.
Why dost thou blind thyself to see a thing which hath no being here? Earth is my body on the earth, and there will with the other stay, until our number shall with the eternal purpose correspond. With both their garments in the blessed cloister are those two lights alone, which hither rose, and this shalt thou take back unto your world.
Stilled was the flaming circle at these words, and with them that sweet mixture which was formed out of the music of the threefold breath, as from fatigue or danger to escape, oars, which had stroked the water just before, are at a whistle's sound all brought to rest. Ah, how disturbed in mind I then became, when I turned round to look at Beatrice, because I could not see her now, though close to her I was, and in the happy world.
End of Paradiso, Canto 25. Section 93 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 26. The eighth or starry heaven. The twins. St. John examines Dante on love. Adam.
While I was frightened by my loss of vision, from the refulgent flaming which had quenched it, a breath, which caused me to give heed, came forth and said,
Till thou regain the sense of sight, which thou hast spent by gazing up at me, 'tis well that thou make up for it by speech. Therefore begin to speak, and say toward what thy soul aspires, and also bear in mind that sight in thee is lost, but not destroyed, because the lady who is leading thee through this divine expanse hath in her look the power possessed by Ananias' hand.
At her own pleasure, soon or late, I said, let the cure reach the eyes which portals were, when with that fire she entered, wherewithal I ever burn. The good which sates this court is Alpha and Omega of all scriptures love reads to me in tones or low or loud. And that same voice which rid me of the fear the sudden blinding blaze had given me, inspired me with a wish to speak again, and said,
Thou surely through a finer sieve must pass thy meaning. It behooves thee say who toward so great a target turned thy bow.
And I, by philosophic arguments, and by authority which from up here descends, must such a love needs stamp itself on me. Because the good, when understood as such, enkindles love, and all the greater love, the more it holds of goodness in itself. Hence to that being who so perfect is, that every good which lies outside of him is nothing but a beam of his own radiance, more than to any other must the mind in love be moved, of all who recognize the truth on which this argument is based. He to mine understanding shows this truth, who demonstrates to me the primal love of all the sempiternal substances. The truthful author's voice revealeth it, when, speaking of himself, he saith to Moses, All goodness shall I have thee see. Thou too revealest it to me when thou beginnest the loud announcement which o'er other trumps heralds on earth the secrets of this state. Thereat I heard,
By human understanding, and by authorities therewith concordant, the sovereign of thy loves is turned to God. But further say if other chords thou feel attract thee toward him, so that thou mayst say how many of love's teeth are biting thee.
Not hidden was the purpose of Christ's eagle. Nay, rather I perceived to what he wished to lead my love's profession to declare. Hence all those bitings, I began again, which possibly could turn one's heart to God, have with my love of him concurrent been. For both the world's existence and mine own, the death which he endured that I might live, and that which all the faithful hope, as I, together with the mentioned living knowledge, have drawn me from the sea of wrong desires, and set me on the shore of righteous love. I love the several leaves wherewith enleaved is all the garden of the eternal gardener. According to the good he giveth each. As soon as I had ceased, a most sweet song throughout all heaven resounded, and my lady said,
Holy, holy.
with the rest. And even as at a vivid flash of light one wakes from sleep, because one's visual power turns toward the ray which moves from coat to coat, and as the one awakened shrinketh back from that which he hath seen, so senseless is his sudden waking, till reflection helps. Thus Beatrice drove all motes from mine eyes, by the mere radiance of her own, whose light shone further than 1,000 miles away. I therefore saw far better than before. Then, since I was amazed at it, I asked about a fourth light I beheld with us. My lady then,
In yonder radiant light, the first soul which the first power e'er created is gazing joyfully upon his Maker.
even as a bough which, while the wind is passing, bends its top down, and then uplifts itself, by innate strength which raises it again, even so did I, amazed, while she was speaking. And then the wish to speak wherewith I burned made me feel reassured, and I began. O fruit that wast alone produced when ripe, O ancient father, thou to whom each bride is both a daughter and a daughter-in-law, I beg thee as devoutly as I can to speak to me. Thou seest my wish, hence I, that I may quickly hear thee, tell it not. At times a covered animal so stirs, that its own movement needs must be revealed, because its covering corresponds to it. So likewise did the first of souls display to me, through that which covered it, how gladly he came to give me pleasure. Then it breathed.
Without it being told to me by thee, better do I perceive what thou desirest, than thou perceivest what thou knowest best. For I behold it in the truthful mirror, which of itself makes other things a likeness, though naught makes it a likeness of itself. Thou fain wouldst hear how long it is since God in that high garden placed me, where this lady prepared thee for so long a flight of stairs. How long it was a pleasure to mine eyes, the real occasion for the mighty wrath, and what the tongue which I both used and made. Now, son, the tasting of the tree was not itself the cause of such a banishment, but only the transgression of the bound. In that place, whence thy lady started Virgil, I hence for this assembly longed 4,300 revolutions of the sun and 2. And him I saw return again to all his highways lights 900 times and 30, while I still abode on earth. The tongue I spoke had quite extinct become a long time ere the people under Nimrod attempted their unfinished task. For never was a product of man's reason apt to endure, for human appetite renews itself according to the heavens. That mankind speaks a work of nature is, but if in this or that way, nature then leaves you to do according to your pleasure. Ere I descended to the grieving place below, the highest good, from whom proceeds the joy which swathes me, was on earth called I. El was he called thereafter. This must be, for human custom is, as on a bough a leaf, which goeth as another comes. Upon the mount which highest from the sea ascends, I lived in innocence and sin, from the first hour until the one which follows after the sun's first quadrant change, the 6th.
End of Paradiso, Canto 26. Section 94 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 27, the 8th or starry heaven. St. Peter's invective. The 9th heaven. Primum mobile. The angelic hierarchies.
Glory to the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
All paradise in such a way began that its sweet song intoxicated me. What I was seeing seemed to me a smile as of the universe, for through both sight and hearing my intoxication entered. O joy, O gladness inexpressible, O life by love and peace completely filled, O wealth no longer longed for, but assured! Before mine eyes the torches four remained on fire, and that which was the first to come began to grow more luminous, and such in its appearance it became, as Jove would come to be, if he and Mars were birds, and interchanged the plumage of their wings. The Providence, which there above assigns both turn and office, silence had imposed upon the blessed choir on every side, when,
If I change my colour, marvel not,
I heard him say,
for even while I am speaking, thou shalt behold all these change colour too. He who on earth usurps my place, which in the sight of God's own Son is vacant, of my burial ground hath made a sewer of blood and stench, whereby the pervert who fell from hence is there below appeased.
The whole of heaven I then beheld o'erspread with that same hue which colours clouds both morn and evening when the sun lies opposite. And as a modest lady, who feels sure of her own self, but at another's fault, on merely hearing of it, timid grows, so Beatrice changed her appearance then. And such as hers, I think, was heaven's eclipse, what time the sovereign power suffered pain. Thereat his words proceeded in a voice so changed from what had been its wonted self, that his appearance had no further changed.
The bride of Christ was not by my blood fed, nor by the blood of Linus, nor by that of Cletus, to be used for gain of gold, but for the winning of this happy life. Both Sixtus, Pius, Urban, and Calixtus, after much lamentation, shed their blood. 'Twas not our purpose that upon the right of our successors one part of the folk of Christ should sit, and on the left another, nor that the keys bestowed in trust on me should on a banner come to be an emblem, and warfare wage on those that were baptized, nor I become an image on a seal for privileges venal and deceptive, which often make me blush and flame with wrath. Rapacious wolves, disguised in shepherds' clothes, are seen in all the pastures from up here. Vengeance of God, why art thou quiet still? Men of Cahors and Gascons even now prepare to drink our blood. O good beginning, to what vile ending thou art doomed to fall! But that high Providence, which saved for Rome, through Scipio's help, the glory of the world, will quickly succour her, as I conceive. And thou, my son, who for thy mortal weight art to return below, open thy mouth, and hide not that which I do not conceal.
Even as our atmosphere lets fall great flakes of frozen vapour, when the horn of heaven's she-goat is in conjunction with the sun, so I beheld the sky grow beautiful and upward flaked with those triumphant flames which for a while had sojourned with us there. My sight was following their forms, and followed till the mid-space, by reason of its vastness, prevented it from passing further on. Thereat the lady, who had seen that freed I was from gazing up, said,
Lower now thine eyes, and see how far thou hast revolved.
I saw that since the hour when I had first looked downward, I had moved through all the arc the first of climates makes from mid to end. Past Cadiz hence Ulysses' insane track I saw, and nearly to the seashore where Europa made herself so sweet a load. And of this little threshing floor much more would have been shown me, but the sun was circling beneath my feet, a sign or more removed. And my enamoured mind, which in my lady always takes pleasure, more than ever now was burning to restore mine eyes to her. And if or art or nature e'er made baits in human flesh or in its painted forms, to catch men's eyes, and capture thus their minds, they altogether would seem naught compared to that divine delight which on me shone, when to her smiling face I turned around. The virtue, therefore, which that look vouchsafed, removed me from fair Leda's lovely nest, and urged me on into the swiftest heaven. Its nearest and its most exalted parts are all so uniform, I cannot tell which Beatrice selected as my place. But she who saw my wish began to speak, and smiled so happily, that God appeared to be rejoicing in her countenance.
The nature of the world, which quiet holds the centre, and around it moves the rest, beginneth here, as from its starting point. And this heaven hath no other where than in the mind divine, where kindled is the love which turns it, and the power itself rains down. One circles light and love encircle it, as it the other heavens, and he alone this precinct understands who girdeth it. Its motion is not measured by another, but all the others are by this, as 10 is measured by its half and by its fifth. And now how time in such a flower port can have its hidden roots, and in the rest its leaves, hereafter can be manifest to thee. O thou cupidity, that 'neath thyself dost sink all mortals so, that none avails out of thy waters to withdraw his eyes. The will in human beings blossoms well, but constant rains turn into blighted fruit the genuine plums, and faith and innocence are found in children only, but take flight before their cheeks are covered up with hair. While still a prattler, one observeth fasts, who later, when his tongue is free, devours under whatever moon whatever food, and one who, while still lisping, loves and hearkens to his mother, later on when speaking well would see her in her grave. Thus in the primal sight becometh black the white face of the lovely child of him who brings the morn and leaves the eventide. And that thou marvel not at this, recall that there is none on earth who rules, and hence the human family goes thus astray, and yet ere January's month became wholly unwintered, through the 100th part neglected there below, these upper spheres shall roar so that the storm so long foreseen will turn the sterns to where the prows are now, so that the fleet will run its course aright, and good fruit will follow on the blossom's flower. End of Paradiso, Canto 27. Section 95 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 28. The Ninth Heaven. Primum Mobile. The Angelic Hierarchies. The Point. The 9 Orders of Angels and the 9 Heavens.
After the truth against the present life of wretched mortals had been shown to me by her who lifts my mind to paradise, as in a mirror he perceives its flame, who from behind is lighted by a torch, before he has it in his sight or thought, and turns around to notice if the glass have told the truth, and sees that it accords therewith, as with its music's time a song, so likewise now my memory recalls that I did as I gazed in those fair eyes, whence love had made accord to capture me. And as I turned around, and mine were touched by that which in that sphere becomes apparent, whene'er one looks intently at its centre, a point I saw, which rays out light so keen that eyes which it enkindles needs must close by reason of its great intensity. And any star that from down here seems smallest would seem to be a moon, if set beside it, as at each other's side the stars are set. Perhaps as near as e'er a halo seems to gird the light around which colours it, when densest is the air which gives it form, a ring of fire was whirling round the point so swiftly that it would have overcome the motion which most quickly girds the world. And by another this was girt around, that by a third, as this one by a fourth, then by a fifth the fourth, and by a sixth the fifth. The seventh came next. Outside of these so widely spread that Juno's messenger, fully circled, were too narrow to contain it. Like these the eighth ring and the ninth, and each more slowly moved, as in its order's number it whirled at greater distance from the first. And that one had the clearest flame of all, whence the pure spark least distant was, because, I think, it most intruths itself therein. My lady, who profoundly lost in thought beheld me, said to me,
On yonder point heaven and the whole of nature are dependent. Look at the circle most conjoined to it, and know thou that it moves so rapidly because spurred onward by its burning love.
And I to her, if ordered were the world as I perceive it is in yonder wheels, what is before me set had sated me. But in the world of sense all revolutions may be perceived to be the more divine, as from the centre they are more remote. Hence, if my longing is to be appeased in this mirific and angelic temple, whose only boundaries are light and love, 'tis fit that I hear further why the example and its exemplar do not correspond, for by myself I think on this in vain.
No wonder is it, if for such a knot thy fingers insufficient are, so hard hath it become through lack of being tried.
My lady thus. She then continued,
Take what I shall tell thee, wouldst thou sated be. and on it subtly concentrate thy mind. The embodied circles wide or narrow are according to the more or less of virtue distributed through all their several parts. A greater goodness makes for greater weal. A greater body greater weal bespeaks, if all its parts are perfect equally. Hence that which with itself sweeps onward all the universe remaining, corresponds to yonder circle which most loves and knows. If, then, thou stretch thy measure round the virtue, not round the appearance, of the substances which seem arranged in circles to thy sight, thou'lt see a marvellous conformity, of more to larger, and of less to smaller, in every heaven, to its intelligence.
Even as the hemisphere of air remains resplendent and serene, when Boreas blows out of the cheek from which he mildest proves, whereby the fog which troubled it before is cleansed and cleared, until the welkin smiles upon us with the charms of all its wards. Even such did I become, when once my lady had with her clear reply provided me, and like a star in heaven the truth was seen. And when her words had ceased, not otherwise doth iron when still boiling scintillate, than yonder circles sparkled. Every spark followed its kindler, and so many were they, that their whole number far more thousands counts than ever did the doubling of the chess. From choir to choir I heard Hosanna sung to that fixed point which holds them at the where, and ever will, where they have always been. And she who in my mind my doubtful thoughts was seeing, said,
The primal rings have shown the seraphs to thee, and the cherubim. Thus swiftly do they heed their bonds, to make them as like the point as may be, and as like it they can be as their vision is sublime. Those other loves that round about them move, thrones of countenance divine are called, and for this reason end the primal triad. And thou shouldst know that all of them are happy, according as their vision plumbs the truth, wherein all understanding is at rest. From this it may be seen how blessedness is founded on the faculty which sees, and not on that which loves and follows after. The measure of this vision is the merit which both of grace and of goodwill is born. Such, then, is their advance from grade to grade. The second triad, which, like that above, produces buds in this eternal spring, whose foliage no nocturnal Aries spoils, sings endlessly its vernal song of praise to three sweet melodies, which sound in three orders of joy, wherewith it shrines itself. Three goddesses are in that hierarchy. The dominations first, the virtues next. The third one is the order of the powers. Then, in the last two dancing choirs but one, with principalities archangels whirl. The last is wholly of angelic joys. All these angelic orders upward look, and downward so prevail, that all to God attracted are, and all in turn attract. And Dionysius with such great desire gave himself up to contemplate these orders, that he both named and graded them as I, but with him later Gregory disagreed, and hence, as soon as ever in this heaven he oped his eyes, at his own self he smiled. Nor would I have thee wonder that on earth a mortal should disclose a truth so secret, for he who saw it here revealed it to him, with many other truths about these rings. End of Paradiso, Canto 28. Section 96 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 29. The ninth heaven. Primum mobile. The angelic hierarchies. The creation, the nature, and the number of the angels.
When, by the ram and by the scales surmounted, both children of Latona make together a girdle of the earth's horizon line, as long as from the moment when the zenith holds them in equipoise, till from that girdle both free themselves by changing hemisphere. Only so long did Beatrice keep silent, a smile her face adorning, as she gazed intently on the point which vanquished me. She then began,
I tell, but do not ask, what thou art fain to hear, for I have seen it where every where and every when is fixed. Not for gain of good unto himself, which is not possible, but that his splendour might in resplendency declare I am in his eternity, outside of time, out of all limits else, the eternal love, as pleased him, in new loves disclosed himself. Nor yet ere this did he remain inert, for neither after nor before occurred God's going to and fro upon these waters. Both form and matter, simple and conjoined, came into being which had no defect, even as three arrows from a three-stringed bow, and as in glass, in amber, or in crystal a ray so shines, that from the time it comes till its completion is no interval. Thus from its Lord did that triform effect ray forth into its being all at once, without distinction as to its beginning. Order was concreate, and for the substances ordained. The highest in the world were those in whom activity was brought forth pure. Pure potentiality the lowest place assumed, and 'tween these two so strong a bond activity and potentiality conjoined, that never will it be unbound. Jerome, concerning angels, wrote for you that their creation was an age-long tract of time before the remnant world was made. But written is this truth in many places by writers of the Holy Ghost. And there thou'lt see it, if but carefully thou look. And reason, too, sees this to some extent, for it could not acknowledge that the motors could be so long deprived of their perfection. And now thou knowest where and when these loves created were, and how, hence in thy longing 3 ardours have already been extinguished. Nor, counting, would one reach as far as 20, as quickly as a portion of the angels disturbed the lowest of your elements. The rest remained, and with such great delight began the art which thou beholdest here, that never from their circling have they ceased. The fall's occasion was the cursed pride of him whom thou didst see oppressed by all the burdens of the world. Those whom thou here beholdest modest were, and recognized themselves as from that goodness sprung which apt had made them for such great intelligence. And therefore, by illuminating grace and by their merit, was their sight so raised, that now a full and steadfast will is theirs. Nor would I have thee doubt, but be assured that to receive God's grace is meritorious, according as affection opes to it. And now, concerning this consistory, much canst thou contemplate without more help, if thou hast apprehended well my words. But seeing that on earth throughout your schools men teach that such the angelic nature is, that it both understands, recalls, and wills, I'll further speak that thou the simple truth mayst see, which there below confounded is, because the doctrine taught equivocates. These substances, ere since the face of God first gladdened them, have not withdrawn their eyes therefrom, whence nothing is concealed. They have no vision which is interrupted therefore by objects new to them, and hence need not remember by divided thought. Folk, therefore, dream down there, though not asleep, some thinking that their words are true, some not. But greater is the latter's sin and shame. And ye down yonder follow not one path when ye philosophize, so much doth the love of show, and being famed for it, transport you. And yet with even less disdain is this endured up here, than when the Holy Scripture is set aside or turned to wrong account. No one considers there how much it costs to sow it in the world, or how much he, who humbly clings to it, gives pleasure here. Each strives to call attention to himself, making his own inventions. These are taught by preachers, while the gospel's voice is stilled. One says that while the Christ was suffering death, the moon turned back and interposed herself, and hence the sun's light failed to reach the earth. Others that of its own accord the light concealed itself, hence its eclipse affected Spaniards and Hindus as it did the Jews. Florence hath not so many Lapi and Bindi as fables such as these, which all year long are shouted from the pulpits everywhere. Hence the poor sheep who do not know return from pasture fed on wind. Nor doth the fact that they see not that they are harmed excuse them. Christ did not say to his first company, Go and preach idle stories to the world, but gave them a foundation for the truth, and that alone found utterance from their lips. Therefore, when striving to enkindle faith, they use the gospel as their shield and lance. Men now go forth to preach with jests and tricks, and so if but a hearty laugh is raised, the cowl puffs up, and nothing more is asked. But in its tail there nests such a bird, that if the crowd perceived it, it would see what that forgiveness is in which it trusts. Therefore such folly hath increased on earth, that without proof or other attestation to any kind of promise men would flock. St. Anthony is fattening thus his pig, and others also fouler far than his by paying money void of coinage stamp. But since a great digression we have made, turn thine eyes backward to the straight road now, that thus our way be shortened with our time. This nature so exceedingly extends in number, that there never was or speech or mortal thought that could extend so far. And if thou look at that which is disclosed by Daniel, thou wilt see that in his thousands no well-determined number is revealed. The primal light, which rays out on it all, is in as many ways therein received, as are the lights wherewith it pairs itself. Hence, since affection follows on the act which understands, love's sweetness is therein burning or warm in different degrees. And see how exceeding high and broad is that eternal worth, which makes itself so many mirrors whereupon it breaks, while in itself, as erst, remaining one. End of Paradiso, Canto 29. Section 97 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 30. The Empyrean, God, the angels and the blessed, the river of light, the mystic rose, the throne of Henry VII.
The 6th hour glows perhaps 6,000 miles away from us, and now our world inclines its shadow to a near-by level bed. Mid-heaven the while, which lies so deep above us, is growing such, that now and then a star is lost to our perception here below. Till, as the brightest handmaid of the sun advances further, star by star, the sky, even to the fairest, closes to our view. Not otherwise the triumph, which forever plays round about the point which vanquished me, and seems contained by what itself contains, little by little faded from my sight. My seeing nothing, therefore, and my love forced me to look again at Beatrice. If what has hitherto been said of her were all included in a single praise, but little would it serve my present turn. The beauty which I then beheld transcends not us alone, but truly I believe its Maker only can enjoy it all. And herewith I confess myself o'erwhelmed more than a tragic or a comic poet was ever by a crisis in his theme. For as the sun the sight that trembles most, so the remembrance of her lovely smile deprives my memory of its very self. From the first day when I beheld her face in this life, till this present sight of it, I've never ceased from following her in song, but now must my pursuit desist from tracing her beauty's progress further in my verse, as at his utmost every artist must. Such as I leave her to a louder cry than that of mine own trump, which draweth now its arduous matter to its closing, she, with a quick leader's mien and voice, resumed.
We now have issued from the greatest body into the heaven which is itself pure light. Light intellectual which is full of love, love of true goodness which is full of joy, joy which transcendeth every kind of pleasure. Here both the soldieries of paradise shalt thou behold, and one in that array which at the final judgment thou shalt see.
Like a quick lightning flash which scatters so the visual faculties that it prevents the eyes reacting to the brightest objects, even so a living light around me shone, and left me swathed about by such a veil of its effulgence that I lost my sight.
The love which calms this last heaven always welcomes into its midst by greetings such as these, and thus adapts the candle to the flame.
No sooner had these brief few words of hers attained mine inner ear, than I perceived that I was being raised above my powers. Hence with new sight I so rekindled me, that there cannot exist so bright a light that now mine eyes could not endure to see it. Light in a river's form I then beheld, which glowed refulgently between two banks, adorned with wondrous hues of early spring. And from this river issued living sparks, which settled everywhere among the flowers, and looked like rubies set in gold. And then, as if intoxicated by its odours, into the wondrous river plunged again, another coming out, if one went in.
The deep desire which now inflameth thee and urges thee to know what thou art seeing, the better pleases me, the more it grows. But of this water it behooves thee drink before so great a thirst as thine is slaked.
So said to me the sunlight of mine eyes.
The river and the topaz lights which come and go,
She added,
and the smiling grass are prefaces foreshadowing their truth. Not that imperfect in themselves they are, but that deficiency exists in thee, because thy sight is not yet strong enough.
There is no little child that turns its face so quickly toward its milk, on waking up much later than hath been its wont, as I, to make far better mirrors of mine eyes, leaned over toward the stream, which only flows that we therein may be the better made. Soon as mine eyelids' eaves had drunk of it, it seemed to me transformed from long to round. And then, like folk who under masks have been, and different seem from what they were before, when once divested of the alien looks, wherein their self had disappeared, even so the flowers and sparks had changed themselves for me into a feast far greater, so that clearly I now beheld both courts of heaven revealed. O splendour of my God, whereby I saw the exalted triumph of the realm of truth, give me the power to tell what I perceived. There is a light up yonder, which allows its Maker to be seen by every creature which only hath its peace in seeing him. And in a circle's form it spreadeth out to such extent that its circumference would be too broad a girdle for the sun. Its whole appearance from a ray proceeds reflected from the summit of the first moved sphere, which from it takes its life and potency. And as within the water at its base a hill reflects itself, as if to see its slopes adorned, when rich with leaves and flowers, thus, ranged above and all around the light, mirrored on o'er 1,000 tears, I saw all that of us have yet returned up there. And if the lowest row within itself gathers so great a light, how great must be this rose's width in its remotest petals! Nor did my vision of its breadth or height lose itself in them, but embraced the whole extent and inmost nature of this joy. There near nor far, nor add nor take away. For there where God unmediated rules, in no way doth the natural law obtain. Into the yellow of the eternal rose, which outward spreads in tears, whose fragrance praises the sun which makes an everlasting spring, was I, like one who, fain to speak, keeps silent, led on by Beatrice, who said to me,
Behold how vast the white-robed convent is. Behold how wide the circuit of our town. Behold our benches so completely filled that few are now the people longed for here. On that great seat whereon thine eyes are fixed by reason of the crown which rests there now, or ere thou sup at this our wedding feast, shall sit the soul, august to be below, of that great Henry who shall come to set Italia straight, ere she shall be prepared. The blinding greed which now bewitches you hath made you mortals like a child, who, though he die of hunger, drives his nurse away. And in the sacred forum such a one shall prefect be, that he'll not go one road with him, in open or covert ways. But in his holy office he will not be long endured by God, for hurled he'll be where Simon Magus is for his reward. And deeper down shall thrust Alagna's man. End of Paradiso, Canto 30. Section 98 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 31. The Empyrean, God, the Angels and the Blessed, Saint Bernard, Dante's last words with Beatrice, the glory of Mary.
In semblance, therefore, of a pure white rose, the sacred soldiery with which his blood Christ made his bride, revealed itself to me. Meanwhile the other host, which flying sees the glory of him who wins its love, and sings the goodness which had made them all so great, was like a swarm of bees, which now enflowers itself, and now returns to where its toil is sweetened, ever coming down to enter the spacious flower, which with so many leaves adorns itself, and reascending thence to where its love for ever makes his home. The faces of them all were living flames, their wings were golden, and the rest so white, that never is such whiteness reached by snow. When down into the flower they came, they spread from bench to bench the peace and ardent love, which by the fanning of their sides they won. Nor did so vast a host of flying forms between the flower and that which o'er it lies, hinder the sight, or dim the splendour seen. Because the light divine so penetrates the universe, according to its worth, that naught can be an obstacle thereto. And this secure and joyous kingdom, thronged by people of the ages old and new, wholly on one mark set its looks and love. O trinal light, that in a single star sparkling before their eyes dost so appease them, look down upon our tempest here below. If the barbarians, coming from a region above which Elice looms every day, while circling with the sun who is her joy, on seeing Rome and all her lofty buildings, what time the Lateran rose eminent o'er every mortal thing, were wonder-struck, how overwhelmed with awe must I have been, I who from human things to things divine, from time into eternity had come, from Florence, to a people just and sane. Because of this indeed, and of my joy, it pleased me to be mute and hear no sound. And even as in the temple of his vow, when hoping to describe it all some day, a pilgrim looks around him and is cheered, even so, while wandering through the living light, I turned mine eyes on all the graded ranks, circling now up, now down, and now around. There love-persuasive faces I beheld, decked by another's light and their own smiles, and gestures fraught with grace and dignity. My look now as a whole had comprehended the general form of paradise, but had not yet settled especially on any part. And I was longing with rekindled wish to ask my lady as to many things concerning which my mind was in suspense, though one thing I had meant, another answered. Thinking to look at Beatrice, an elder I saw arrayed as other glorious folk. His eyes and cheeks were all suffused with joy and kindliness, and such his pious mien, as fitting is a father's tenderness. Hence, where is she? I said impulsively, and he,
To bring thy longing to an end was I by Beatrice from mine own place withdrawn. And if upon the highest ranks third round thou look, thou shalt again behold her enthroned where her deserts allotted her.
Without reply I lifted up mine eyes, and saw her, as reflecting from herself the eternal rays, she made herself a crown. Not from the tract whence highest thunder's peal is any mortal eye so far removed from whatsoever sea it fathoms most, as Beatrice was distant from mine eyes. But naught was that to me, because her face came down to me unblurred by aught between. O Lady, thou in whom my hope is strong, and who for my salvation didst endure to leave the traces of thy feet in hell, I recognize the virtue and the grace of all the many things which I have seen, as coming from thy power and kindliness. From slavery to freedom thou hast drawn me in every way, and over every path, within thy power to achieve that end. Guard thou in me the fruitage of thy bounty, that thus my soul, restored to health by thee, may, when it leaves my body, please thee still. I thus implored, and she, though so far off she seemed, looked down at me and smiled. Then to the eternal fount she turned again. Thereat the holy elder said,
That thou mayst bring thy journey to its perfect end, for which both prayers and holy love have sent me, hover about this garden with thine eyes, for to have seen it will prepare thy look to rise still higher through the ray divine. The Queen of Heaven, for whom I wholly burn with love, will grant us this and very grace, for I her faithful servant Bernard am.
As he who from Croatia comes, perchance, to look at our Veronica, and who, because of its old fame, is never sated, but says in thought, as long as it is shown, My Lord, Christ Jesus, God in very truth, was then your countenance like unto this? Even such was I, as on the living love I gazed on him, who in this world received a taste in contemplation of that peace.
This glad existence, Son of Grace,
He then began.
will not be known to thee, if fixed at this low level only are thine eyes. Look at the circles, to the most remote, till yonder thou behold that Queen enthroned, to whom devoutly subject is this realm.
I raised mine eyes, and as at early morn the horizon's eastern parts excel in light the regions where the sun is setting, so, as with mine eyes from vale to mount I moved, I saw a region at the utmost verge vanquish in light all other parts before me. And as the skies, where one awaits the car which Phaeton badly drove, more brightly gleam, while pale the light on either side becomes, so likewise brilliant in the middle loomed that peaceful oriflamme, and on each side the fire in equal measure burned less bright. And clustered there with wings outspread I saw more than 1,000 angels jubilant, and each distinct in splendour and in speed. While smiling down upon their sports and songs a beauty I beheld, who was the joy within the eyes of all the other saints. And even if I in utterance were as rich as in imagination, I'd not dare attempt to tell the least of its delight. When Bernard saw mine eyes intently fixed upon the object of his ardent love, he turned to it his own with such affection, that mine more eager grew to look again.
End of Paradiso, Canto 31. Section 99 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 32. The Empyrean, God. The Angels and the Blessed. The Order of the Rose. The Blessed Children. The Great Patricians.
Intent on his delight, that contemplator the office of a teacher took unasked, and thereupon began these holy words.
The one so beautiful at Mary's feet is she who opened and who made the wound, which Mary closed again, and then anointed. In the order which up there the third seats make, Rachel beneath her sits with Beatrice, as thou perceivest, Sarah, Rebecca, Judith, and she who was that singer's ancestress, who said when he was grieving for his sin, have mercy on me. Thou canst thus behold downward from rank to rank, as each I name, and through the rows decline from leaf to leaf. Descending from the 7th row of seats, even as above it, Hebrew women follow, dividing all the tresses of the flower. For in accordance with the attitude their faith assumed toward Christ, these women form the wall which separates the sacred steps. On this side, where full-bloomed the flower is, complete with all its leaves, are seated those who in the Christ that was to come believed, and on the other, where the semicircles are interrupted by still vacant seats, are those who face toward Christ already come. And as on this side here the glorious throne of heaven's own Lady, and the other seats beneath it such a great partition make, so opposite the seat of that great John, who, ever holy, underwent the desert and martyrdom, and then 2 years in Hades, while Francis, Benedict, and Augustine beneath him were decreed to form the line with others down to here, from round to round. And now behold how great God's foresight is, for each of these 2 aspects of the faith will fill this garden to the same extent. And know that downward from the row of seats which midway separates the 2 divisions, no one is seated for his own deserts, but for another's, under fixed conditions. For all of these are spirits who were freed before they had the power to really choose. This by their faces thou canst well perceive, and by their childish voices furthermore, if, looking at them well, thou listen too. Thou doubtest now, and doubting thou art silent, but I will set thee free from that strong bond wherein thy subtle thoughts are holding thee. Within the ample nature of this realm, nothing can any more occur by chance than either sadness, thirst, or hunger can. For in accordance with eternal law is settled all thou seest, so that here close fitting to the finger is the ring. These people, therefore, who before their time have reached true life, are not without good cause more excellent or less among themselves. The King, through whom this kingdom finds repose in such delight and love, that no one's will is bold enough to long for any greater, creating all minds in his own glad sight, as him it pleases, dowers each with grace in divers ways. Here let the fact suffice, and this is clearly and expressly marked for you in Holy Scripture, by those twins who, in their mother, had their wrath aroused. According to the color of the hair of that grace, therefore, must the light supreme be worthily accorded as a crown. Without deserving aught, then, for their deeds, are these to different grades assigned, which differ in their innate keen-sightedness alone. The faith of parents only was, indeed, with innocence, enough for their salvation throughout the centuries of early times. Then, when the primal ages had elapsed, males were by circumcision forced to win the virtue needed by their guileless wings. But later, when the age of grace had come, without the perfect baptism in the Christ, such innocence was there below retained. But now look at the face which to the Christ is most resemblant, for its light alone can make thee ready to behold the Christ.
I saw such gladness raining down on her, borne by those holy minds, created such that they might fly across those altitudes, that whatsoever I had seen before ne'er held me with such admiration poised, nor showed me such resemblance unto God, and that same love which first descended there. Singing, spread out his open wings in front of her. And on all sides the beatific court made such an answer to the song divine, that every face became the more serene. O Holy Father, who for me dost bear to be down here, and leave the pleasant place, where by eternal lot thou hast thy seat, who is that angel who with such delight is at our Queen's eyes gazing, and is so enamoured that he seems to be on fire? For teaching I had thus recourse again to him who was from Mary drawing beauty, as from the sun the early morning star, and he to me,
As much self-trust and grace as can be in an angel or a soul are all in him, and we would have it so, for he it was who carried down the palm to Mary, when God's Son upon himself was pleased to take the burden of our flesh. But with thine eyes now follow after me, as I keep speaking, and note the great patricians of this most just and kind imperial state. The two that have the happiest seats up there, because the nearest to Augustus' throne, are, as it were, the two roots of this rose. He that upon the left is at her side, that father is, because of whose bold taste the human species tastes such bitterness. And on her right thou seest that ancient father of Holy Church, to whom Christ gave in trust the keys of this fair flower. And he who saw, ere dying, all that fair bride's troubled days, who with the spear and with the nails was won, beside him sits. And at the other side that leader rests, neath whom the ingrate folk, stiff-necked and fickle-minded, lived on manna. Anna thou seest sitting opposite to Peter, so content to see her daughter, that never from her doth she move her eyes, although Hosanna singing. Or 'gainst the oldest father of a family Lucia sits, who had thy lady go, when thou thy brows in downward flight didst turn. But since apace thy slumber time is fleeing, here will we pause, as that good tailor does, who cuts his gown according to his cloth, and toward the primal love direct our eyes, that, looking toward him, thou mayst penetrate as far into his splendor as thou canst. But lest perchance by moving thine own wings thou shouldst recede, believing to advance, grace needs must be obtained for thee by prayer, grace from the one who hath the power to help thee. Hence follow after me with thine affection, that from my words thy heart turn not aside.
He then began the following holy prayer.
End of Paradiso, Canto 32. Section 100 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 33. The Empyrean. God. St. Bernard's Prayer to Mary. The Vision of God. Ultimate Salvation.
O Virgin Mother, daughter of thy Son, humbler and loftier than any creature, eternal counsel's predetermined goal, thou art the one that such nobility didst lend to human nature, that its maker scorned not to make himself what he had made. Within thy womb rekindled was the love, through whose warm influence in the eternal peace this flower hath blossomed thus. Here unto us thou art a noonday torch of charity, and down below 'mong mortal men thou art a living fount of hope. Lady, so great thou art, and hast such worth, that one who longs for grace, and unto thee hath not recourse, wingless would wish to have his longing fly. Not only doth thy kindliness give help to him that asketh it, but many times it freely runs ahead of his request. In thee is mercy, pity is in thee magnificence, and all there is of goodness in a creature meets in thee. Now doth this man, who from the lowest drain of the universe hath one by one beheld, as far as here, the forms of spirit life, beseech thee of thy grace for so much strength that with his eyes he may uplift himself toward ultimate salvation higher still. And I, who never for mine own sight burned more than I do for his, offer thee all my prayers, and pray that they be not too poor, that thou with thy prayers so dissolve each cloud of his mortality, that unto him the highest pleasure may unfold itself. And furthermore I pray to thee, O Queen, who canst whate'er thou wilt, that after such a sight thou keep all his affections sound. His human promptings let thy care defeat. See with how many blessed ones Beatrice is clasping for my prayers her hands to thee.
The eyes beloved and revered by God, intent on him who prayed, revealed to us how grateful unto her our earnest prayers. Thence they addressed them to the eternal light, wherein it may not be believed the eye of any creature finds so clear a way. And I, who to the end of all desires was drawing near, within me, as I ought, brought to its goal the ardour of desire. Bernard was smiling, and was making signs for me to look on high, but as he wished, I was already of mine own accord, because my sight, as purer it became, was penetrating more and more the radiance of that high light, which of itself is true. From this time onward greater was my sight than is our speech, which yields to such a vision, and memory also yields to such excess. And such as he who seeth in a dream, and after it the imprinted feeling stays, while all the rest returns not to his mind, even such am I. For almost wholly fades my vision, yet the sweetness which was born of it is dripping still into my heart. Even thus the snow is in the sun dissolved, even thus the Sibyl's oracles, inscribed on flying leaves, were lost adown the wind. O light supreme, that dost uplift thyself so far from mortal thought, relend my mind a little of what thou didst seem to be, and cause my tongue to be so powerful, that of thy glory it may leave at least a spark unto the people still to come. For to my memory if it but a while return, and speak a little in these lines, more of thy victory will be conceived. I think the keenness of the living ray which I endured would have confounded me, if from it I had turned away mine eyes. And I recall that I, because of this, the bolder was to bear it, till I made my vision one with value infinite. O the abundant grace whereby I dared to pierce the light eternal with my gaze, until I had therein exhausted sight. I saw that far within its depths there lies, by love together in one volume bound, that which in leaves lies scattered through the world. Substance and accident, and modes thereof, fused as it were in such a way that whereof I speak is but one simple light. This union's general form I think I saw, since saying so I feel that I the more rejoice. Of more forgetfulness for me one moment is, than centuries 25 are for the enterprise which once caused Neptune to wonder at the shadow Argo cast. My mind, thus wholly in suspense, was gazing steadfast and motionless, and all intent, and gazing grew enkindled more and more. Such in that light doth one at last become, that one can never possibly consent to turn therefrom for any other sight, because the good, which is the will's real object, is therein wholly gathered, and, outside, that is defective which is perfect there. Even as to what I do remember, mine will now be shorter than an infant's speech, who at the breast still bathes his tongue. 'Twas not that there was other than a simple semblance within the living light wherein I gazed, which always is what it hath been before. But through my sight, which in me, as I looked, was gathering strength, because I changed, one sole appearance underwent a change for me. Within the lofty light's profound and clear subsistence there appeared to me 3 rings, of threefold colour and of one content. And one, as rainbow is by rainbow, seemed reflected by the other, while the third seemed like a fire breathed equally from both. O how to my conception short and weak is speech! And this, to what I saw, is such, that it is not enough to call it small. O light eternal, that alone dost dwell within thyself, alone dost understand thyself, and love and smile upon thyself, self-understanding and self-understood. That circle which appeared to be conceived within thyself as a reflected light, when somewhat contemplated by mine eyes, within itself, of its own very colour, to me seemed painted with our human form, whence wholly set upon it was my gaze. Like the geometer who gives himself wholly to measuring the circle, nor by thinking finds the principle he needs, even such was I at that new sight. I wished to see how to the ring the image there conformed itself, and found therein a place. But mine own wings were not enough for this. Had not my mind been smitten by a flash of light, wherein what it was willing came. Here power failed my high imagining, but like a smoothly moving wheel, that love was now resolving my desire and will, which moves the sun and all the other stars.
End of Paradiso, Canto 33. End of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon.